Hey everyone, welcome back or welcome to our Creative Entrepreneur interview series. I am your co-host, Beth Barany, alongside my co-host, Gala Russ, and we will be introducing our awesome guest in a moment. I just want to introduce you to myself briefly. So I am Beth Barany, an award-winning science fiction and fantasy author, and my day job is being a book coach, teacher, and editor to other science fiction and fantasy authors and really help them go from little seedling of an idea all the way to a mature, beautiful plant of some kind, of their kind, to help them publish and find their readers and flourish in that process. Also, I am now helping other creative writers who want to build profitable, sustainable businesses to serve other creative writers so they can share their expertise with confidence and make a living doing what they love. And Gala and I are offering an entrepreneurship apprenticeship training this fall, which you can learn more about in our show notes. So that is a little bit about me. I'm going to hand it to you, Gala.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gala Russ, and I started my creative writing journey as a romance author, and I have published 9 books, I believe, at this point, under the pen name Willa Drew with my co-author. And then I ventured into the book coaching and publishing strategy world, helping others figure out their way. And Beth was one of the mentors who helped me along the way. And then this idea was born about what if we help other people go through this together? Because that made my journey so much faster and so much easier. And today we're going to talk to another creative entrepreneur, and that's Stacy. Stacy, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Stacy Juba. I'm the founder of Shortcuts for Writers. I'm an author of mystery novels, young adult paranormal, young adult hockey novels, the Storybook Valley, chick lits, rom-com series set at a fairy tale theme park. So I just like to write whatever my muse, whatever ideas my muse gives me. I'm also a freelance developmental editor and line editor. And through Shortcuts for Writers, I offer online courses for writers, most of them self-paced on like self-editing, the craft of writing, creativity and motivation and organization.
All
So
sounds
wonderful.
amazing.
Yeah. And you co-host with other teachers. You and I co-created, I guess I taught a class in your community, an LP for fiction writers, which was really fun.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Gala, you'll ask the first question?
I'm going to go with the first question. The first question for you is, what services or products make up the core of your business right now?
So I offer freelance developmental editing and line editing. So all developmental editing would be just giving an overview of everything in the manuscript from characters and plot to description, point of view to the writing technique. And then I'll often work with authors for multiple rounds, and as they fix some of those bigger structural issues, then we can do more line editing to really tighten up the sentences and make them more vivid and just sort of add more flair to the writing. So I really enjoy doing that. And I also offer several self-paced courses. I have 2 bigger signature courses, Book Editing Blueprint, a step-by-step plan to making your novels publishable. So that's a intensive 10-module course where it's for both, like whether you're drafting a novel or whether you have a completed manuscript and you want to go back and self-edit it. So there's 2 tracks for drafting and editing. It's basically that was the first course I created because as an editor, I was seeing so many of my clients make the same kinds of mistakes. So the goal with that course is to cut down on rounds of editing, to teach you to think more like an editor. And then I have my other signature course, the Organized Author Systems for Success, which that focuses on like digital clutter, like cleaning up like your computer and your email and organizing like your query letters and your book files and that kind of thing, because that can keep you from being as productive if you're having all these just getting sort of hung up on those little things from being disorganized. And then it has a section on internal clutter, which is like motivation and sparking your creativity. Physical clutter, like cleaning your office and your home, because I've found that it's hard to be creative when everything around you is messy. That's often a sign that you're of like feeling stressed or overwhelmed. So it goes into that. And then there's a section also that's on like writing routines and using calendars and planners. So I've always been really interested in productivity and holistic things. And so I was able to put a lot of that into the organized author. And then I have several smaller courses on everything from like internal dialogue to the most common plot flaws. I have a $9 course on writing book blurbs, a course on first pages quick fix clinic. I have something called the Energize Your Writing Toolkit, which is sort of like a catalog of nonverbal communication. Because again, I see a lot of authors using the same words over and over again. So look, walk, smile, gaze. So I created the Energize Your Writing Toolkit to help them get out of that rut and start being more creative and original with their nonverbal cues, and reminding them to use nonverbal cues, because often that's overlooked. And then I have some smaller courses on areas like oracle cards, using oracle cards to spark your creativity and to overcome things like imposter syndrome. I have a $9 downloadable journal that can be, it's full of like oracle card spreads, or you can use them for tarot spreads. And I have a vision board toolkit for writers, which is a course on how to use vision boards, why you should use a vision board, but it's also comes with a lot of like artwork and printables that you can use to create you can print it out and use it to create a physical vision board that's geared toward writers, with like review things that you want your reviewers to say, or just inspirational quotes related to writing. And there's some templates if you prefer to do like a Canva digital vision board. So I have like quite a variety of courses. I just have a lot of fun creating them and seeing what my audience is interested in.
It sounds like it's a good reflection of you, because when we talk about writing, we always tell people that your writing is a reflection of you and your experiences and your interests and your craft level. And I feel like this is such a cool representation of you. By you listing the courses and things that you do, I kind of get to know you as a person. I feel like, oh, I think I know a little bit more what you're interested in also, and what brings you joy probably, and what you want to dig deeper, because that's what you have to do when you're creating all of this. Is this a fair thing to maybe tell us? How did you get, what is usually the choice and the process of picking these topics? How much of it comes from the audience? How much comes from you? And how much joy, I guess, is it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it comes like from me. I mean, I guess when I first started with like book editing blueprint, like as I was saying, that came from just my audiences, my clients, and I was seeing a lot of the same mistakes over and over again. And I was working with clients that ideally they could have used like 8 rounds of developmental editing, before they even went on to like line editing and copy editing. Obviously, nobody can afford that. So I decided to create a course as a stepping stone to hiring an editor, so that they could learn everything in the course that I would be telling them, so that by the time they do start working with an editor, the editor can actually edit and it can give them a higher level feedback, rather than teaching them how to write, basically. Because that's what I was finding myself doing, was teaching clients how to write rather than editing their books. Because very few people go to school to learn how to write a book. So that's where that course came from. And then the organized author, that really came from my interest in productivity. Like over the years, I've been writing since I was a child. And I had my first book published when I was 18. And I actually had to do the rewrites working with an editor at Avon Books, like, well, living in a college dorm and coming home on the weekends. And then, like, I was a reporter for several years, writing books on the side. And then I was writing and had an agent when I had little kids, and I got my first book published when my kids were really, really little, and then my writing routine sort of adjusted over the years as my kids got older. There was a period when my youngest daughter got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when she was 6 years old, and I was just too overwhelmed to write for several months. So that's sort of where the organized author came from, because I've just had this writing dream, these writing goals in all these different times in my life, and have had to learn how to fit it in and to get things done. And then there've been times like when my daughter was diagnosed where it was just too stressful, and I really had to give myself time to, to tell them that's okay. Real life is more important, and you can get back to it. And I was able to get back to it several months later. So I was really proud of myself for that. I was able to write Fooling Around with Cinderella, which was a really funny chick lit book. And I didn't think I'd be able to get back into that funny voice. So that was a real triumph for me. And then it also incorporates some, like with the Oracle, the Vision Board course, the Oracle card course. I've always been interested in things like that. I'm trained in Reiki, which is a form of hands-on healing. When I was a reporter, I was like the health reporter. My major in college actually wasn't writing, was exercise physiology, because I was very interested in health and fitness. And for years, I've written I wrote for hospital magazines and newsletters and parenting magazines. So I think through my courses, I've been able to really bring in my interest in like health and wellness, and my open-mindedness about different modalities. And then some of the other courses have come about like from like workshops. I've done my Inside Voices course on internal dialogue, came from a workshop I did for my friend Kat Caldwell. It was on internal dialogue. Like she was offering, like bringing in teachers and offering workshops to her audience. And it was so popular. And it seemed like there were so many people that were having trouble like with internal dialogue, and how much is too much. And, how do you know if it's not enough, and how do you blend it in naturally? So I took that workshop and I made it even bigger. I made it into a course. So sometimes it stems from what I see people are responding to or having trouble with. But it's a lot of fun. I find like creating courses is almost like writing a book. There's so much writing involved, but it's kind of multimedia also. So you get to do videos and come up with cheat sheets and different handouts, and go looking for like the art to put into the course. I just find it's very creative. So it satisfies like my creative writing a book instinct, but putting it into a different format.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. I share your enthusiasm and excitement and about making courses. And so a thread that we've been noticing in these interviews is people responding to their audience, noticing what the audience is responding to, something that you offer them. And I also love that you're coming from your own interest and then you put it out there. It sounds like, and wait to see if people are interested in it. And I don't know about you, but I mean, have you had some things that you've offered that people haven't responded to the way you expected them to?
Yeah, like sometimes like my vision board toolkit, that seems to sell at certain times of the year. Like it's more popular at like around New Year's, or after like Thanksgiving, that period where people are starting to think about like the next year. And I'm trying to, that's so weird. My vision board just felt was talking about it. Okay. Um, but yeah, like that's something that you can really use any time of year. You don't, I think some people are just sort of tied into like setting their goals. It's sort of like a New Year's resolution at the beginning of the year. And I'm trying to like show that, it's never too late to set your goals. I'm very big into like quarterly planning. I'm actually working on a course on quarterly planning. I have a lot of that in my organized author, but I'm going to do sort of like a shorter course for people who just sort of want to learn that, because like one thing I've seen, I guess this comes from like my clients, I've seen a lot of writers that they underestimate how long it takes to be ready to publish your book. Like they'll hire the editor and they think it's just, if they've never published a book before, this is their first one, they often think it's just going to be like one round of editing, and then they're going to hire the copy editor and the proofreader, and imagine they're surprised when they get back 12-page letter, a single space, and then the marked up manuscript where and they already have like the cover artist booked, and they have like they're planning to send out review copies, and they have it on pre-order on Amazon. So I really encourage writers to just think more in terms of quarterly planning, and just try not to bite off more than you can chew, because it can get really frustrating when you get behind. And it's good to be ambitious, but it's hard to everything's going to take longer than you think it is. And if you want to have a good launch, you need to make time, if you're trying to send out like advanced reader copies, you got to give people time to read it and not be tied into the schedule. Like, it's got to be published by Christmas. A lot of times people have a deadline like that, like before Christmas, they want it to be out, and they just hired the editor in like August. So they have to get like all these rewrites done and all that promotion. Yeah. So I'm trying to sort of raise awareness about just being more organized and having more realistic goals. Because I think it's like great to be ambitious, it's great to dream big, but you have to make your goals realistic. And so many writers are like juggling writing with like family responsibilities, or caring for kids, or aging parents, or having jobs and health conditions. So yeah, again, it's like I teach in my organized author course. It's about balance. If you burn yourself out, you're not going to get anything done. So I think that I find that my craft courses sell better than my kind of motivation and organization courses, just because I think writers don't realize how important it is. But they can be so much more productive if they have a realistic plan, and they just keep evaluating every few months. They evaluate where they are, and you can adjust the plan. If you get, maybe your editor won't have a lot of editorial, there will only be 5 pages, then it won't be, and it's much further along. You don't know. You can always adjust your schedule if you get ahead, but it's just gonna be really stressful if you get behind because your goals are just too unrealistic.
Yeah, absolutely. Most first-time authors and early stage authors, yeah, so unrealistic. Yeah. And so, in what ways have your offers evolved from when you started your business to where you are now?
When I started, probably about 12 years ago, 12 years ago, it was just editing. Well, actually, way before that, I was freelance writing. I did freelance articles and everything, newsletters, articles, magazine articles for years. And then I decided to get into freelance editing, and I kind of tested the waters with that. Yeah, I started out with my prices really low to get testimonials and to see how I liked it. And I found that I was really good at it, but I also found that now I understood why editors charge so much. As a writer, but I was always like, "Oh my gosh, that's so expensive." And luckily, I really hadn't had to hire a freelance editor, because my publishing companies ha had editors I worked with and everything. But when I did need to hire one, I paid for it, but I was like, "Wow, this is really expensive." And now I see why, because it's really takes a lot of effort. I mean, it's to do a book justice, it takes so much out of you, because you're kind of adding your creativity and trying to understand the author's vision. And if it's a beginner author, there's so much teaching. And if the story is more developed, then it's a lot of line editing and just really trying to help the author reach their potential with that book. So then I raised my rates, and I realized that there were only so many clients I could take on in a year. And that's when I branched out into online courses, because, again, as I said before, so many authors really weren't ready for an editor anyway when they hired one, and they really would spend all their editing budget on an early draft. So it was sort of like 2 birds with 1 stone. It helped. Creating that course helped help the writers, because it gave them the stepping stone, a much more affordable option, so that they could afford more rounds of editing down the line, rather than spending it all for really private coaching and private, like, one-on-one, not even coaching, but like private teaching, having like a private writing instructor. It was beneficial for me, because there's only so many, I only have so much time, I can't do more than a couple of manuscripts a month, really, because I put so much into it. And then I don't want to read anything else, because I've been reading a week. It just was much more sustainable to do the courses. I did as I mentioned, I did those 2 signature programs because that was really the book editing blueprint was what people really needed as far as craft, and then the organized authors, what I felt like they really needed, even though they didn't know it, to be more balanced and organized. And then I just started creating more and more of those smaller courses just as I had ideas or as I could see what people were interested in. One thing that I did poll my group is for a while I thought about doing like a membership because I was reading so much about memberships, and I found that when I polled them, probably let's see, 85% of them didn't want a membership. They wanted something. They just wanted me to keep doing what I was doing with like self-paced courses. So I don't know if that's just my audience because that's what I've offered up until the point of self-paced courses. But so because I'd pulled them, I decided to just keep doing what I was doing and not do a membership and just keep doing the self-paced courses. So now I just like right now I'm working on one on historical fiction based on a workshop I did. I'm working on one. I did a workshop like about a year ago on like romantic fights, like romantic conflicts, and now I'm turning that into a course, except it's going to be just not just romance would be part of it, but it's going to be like any kind of conflict, like in a book, like friends or siblings, romance, whatever, how to like amp up the tension and the arguments in your book. So there's no shortage of ideas.
There's no shortage of ideas to pop it, Stacy. We actually need to wrap up pretty soon. So, Gally, you have a follow-up question?
I have one question because I think one thing that I do to myself a lot of times when I see a person with a very well-developed catalog of products and offerings is feel super inferior and like I have to just like sit down and produce 15 things right away because I am so behind. And I know mentally I kind of self-coach myself that you said it, you've been doing it for 12 years and you have all of these things and each thing takes time and it evolves and all of that kind of stuff. I wonder if you could give us a short overview of a timeline of how long does it usually take to create a class for you, maybe between like the thinking about it, the prototyping, the actually putting it out so that it can put a little bit into perspective. And for people who feel like, oh, I'm so behind, I need to create 15 courses in my first year,
Yeah.
like behind that perspective around that.
Yeah, no, my bigger courses, the book editing blueprint and the organized author, those took like probably like a year each. And then there's things that come up, like I was on one course platform and I wound up switching to another one a year later. So, and then I had to like transfer everything over, which is like pasting everything in and reformatting it, re-uploading picture, re-uploading. So that took me, I thought that would take me like a month. It took me like 3 months. So it takes time. And then for the smaller courses, generally maybe a year. And I had to like stop, like I was now for like summits and conferences, I mostly just do interviews. I usually say I don't have the bandwidth to create a workshop because I'm trying to focus on creating my own workshops. So sometimes you have to learn to say no or to set boundaries for what you can and can't do. So in order to kind of stay on task with my goals, that I've had to cut out some things. But yeah, you're never going to turn out like 15 quality courses in 1 year because they take a lot of time, recording them, editing them, and writing them, and then marketing them, all the email sequences and everything. And I'm my own worst boss, my own toughest boss. So right now I have 4 courses. They should be easy because many of them are based on the past workshops I had done, but there's still so much I want to expand them. You have to do the graphics and write the email sequences and do the checkout pages and the landing pages. So it's a lot of work. And in between, I'm trying to work with my clients and write emails and email broadcasts to my lists. And as you learn more, then you want to go back and like right now, I'm revamping my welcome sequence. I use Kit, it used to be ConvertKit, so I'm revamping that, and that's taking longer than I thought, and I using like different software and everything. So if you're a perfectionist like me, you're going to look back at some things and want to edit them, revise them. Even courses, I've gone back and added things too. So, yeah, you can't, it's hard to, when you see other people launching something like launching a course or launching a membership or a program, and you're not ready yet, it is easier to get like that imposter syndrome or I'm behind, but could things take time? Just like writing a book, writing a good book takes time. And, once it's done, it's worth it. And then you can move on to the next thing. So, slow steps.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that puts it into perspective because I find that, as you mentioned, with people underestimating how long it takes to get from a finished first draft to a published book in self-publishing, especially traditional publishing, right? The same thing goes to creating courses or workshops or nonfiction books that are based on what you want to teach. It all takes a lot longer than you might think, and then you need to pace yourself and not burn out.
Yeah. And I think it's fun. The creating the workshops and everything is the fun part. Doing the email sequences and the checkout pages and the landing pages and the tags so people are in the right funnel when they sign up for something and your list, they're going to get in the right email. That's not so fun,
Yeah.
but it has to be done. So that's one thing I have to remind myself. It's like, I just want to go create the courses because I'm creative. I just love creating things, but you have to do the drudge work too, so that people can actually buy the courses.
Yeah, the business side of things. Well, I think we're going to end it here for today. This is so wonderful to hear, Stacy, your process around course creation. I think people really will benefit from that. So wonderful. Of course, we could keep going. There's so many questions to talk about. Things would be so much fun. So we'll be doing this series again. And so I just want to thank you so much, Stacy, for taking the time out of your busy, wonderful, creative day to come share with us.
No, thank you for having me. It was fun.
Oh, good.
Thank you so much.
Well,
Thank you.
Bye-bye.